Hello and welcome once more to Cafecito con Prospanica. This is our weekly webinar series where we join together to engage as a community in ideas with the voices that can just support our growth during this difficult time. I am Evan Cleveland. I'm the Director of Programming for Prospanica. And before we get started, I'd like to go through briefly a few announcements. So don't forget, these are the final days for our scholarship program. The scholarship program goes in 2 rounds, but to make it to the second round, you have to do the first. So go to prospanica.org/scholarships to learn all about what's needed, who is eligible, et cetera, et cetera. Go check it out today before the scholarship ends. Now, we've been talking every week about our Prospanica gear. Today, I am not in Prospanica gear. I wanted to make sure everyone was clear. I am washing clothes during social distancing, but you can go to Prospanica gear and purchase a whole number of items. And remember that the proceeds from these sales do benefit the Prospanica Foundation, which is what is running the scholarship program. So your purchase can support the next generation of leaders. Proforma.com/prospanica-gear is the website. You can also go to the prospanica.org website and click store. Finally, don't forget, coming up on April 28th, 12 to 3 Eastern Time, is our virtual career fair. This is something super exciting. You can go check it out now if you're thinking about a career shift, if you need to make a career shift, if you're just looking toward the future and want to keep every option open. Check this out. You can see the list of companies that have signed up, and more are signing up every week. So go check it out, register and join us. It's bit.ly/pro career fair, or you can find it on prospanica.org under the careers drop down, the virtual career fair. Okay, so without further ado, I'm excited to introduce our speaker today, Jeffrey Vargas. Now, Jeff started his career in the federal government, where he served in numerous senior level human capital roles. And then he created his own consulting practice, which is what he's here to talk about with us today, because there is where he became a nationally known figure in learning and development. You also can't find a kinder, more generous man than Jeff Vargas, who is here with me on the screen. So welcome to Cafecito con Prospanica.
Evan, my man, you are the one who's kind and generous, and I appreciate the opportunity to engage everybody today.
Well, thank you. So we wanted to, first of all, start off with a quick poll. So before I go away from the screen, let's bring up the poll for all of our attendees. So here's the question. We want to know your current experience with peer mentoring. So let's take a second. Everyone can go ahead and select the answer that applies to their situation. And then once we've gotten the responses, we'll go ahead and share those out. Here we go. So it looks like we have quite a few people who say they are both a mentor and a mentee, but quite a larger number saying they are currently not engaged either as a mentor or mentee. So that's outstanding. Perfect. We're so glad that you have joined us today. And so before I let Jeff take control, I just wanted to remind everyone that we will have time, a tiny amount of time at the end of the webinar for questions. So please, you got the GoTo dashboard. Go ahead and send your questions in through the chat feature, and I will pay attention to those, and I'll come back at the very end to talk through that with Jeff. But for now, Jeff, it is completely yours. I will step aside, so take it away.
All right. So everybody can see the screen as we're going forward. That's my crazy bio there. As some of you may know, I just mentioned one thing here. I had the literally the privilege and the honor to be one of the founders of the National Hispanic Youth Symposium, and have been working with the Latino community for 20 plus years before all this was gray. So as we get moving forward on this whole conversation with this idea about mentoring, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is mentoring through COVID-19. Now look, for you and for me, there has probably been no greater disruptor to this whole conversation about the workplace than COVID-19. But I'm going to argue that today that there's also no better time for you and I to experience mentoring, particularly peer mentoring during this incredible season of change. I know for me, I've got, I'm married, I've got 3 kids, and my 87-year-old mom, Puerto Rican mom, moved in with me recently. And so we are getting to redefine what it means to be together as a family. And I think in some ways we've actually ended up mentoring one another. Because as we're going to talk about in just a few moments, peer mentoring can happen anywhere at any time. The reality is in today's world, there's 8 to 10 different kinds of mentoring that takes place. Many of you may be participating in what's often called a traditional mentoring program. It's very formalized. There's an application process, a selection process. Some of you may be doing some informal mentoring, but the one we're really emphasizing today, the one we're going to be talking about today, is peer mentoring. Peer mentoring is one of my favorite, one of my most fun mentoring engagements. And the reason why is because peer mentoring really, at the end of the day, it's about 2 people who've decided to come together because each of them, they really have something to learn from and contribute to one another. The engagement, if you will, is one on an even playing field. And the purpose of mentoring is really sharing. It's giving people a chance to grow individually and professionally in the workplace. It's mentoring that has no traditional bounds. It's not bound by a title or experience. It's really what we call unleashed mentoring. And the best thing about that is that you can be super successful in a peer mentoring engagement based on the current technology that we're utilizing. So whether it's a WebEx meeting, it's a Zoom meeting, it's a phone call, you have the capacity to connect with people. And what's great about that is you don't have to do it in a face-to-face sort of interaction. And here's really the best part about the structure of peer mentoring. Peer, as we put it in quotes, means you're a peer because maybe you share something around your same age, your experience, your interest, the industry you work in. Peer really has a broad definition, which means for you to be a peer mentor, you have a large scale of capacity where you can be selected into and selected from, because both you and the person you're participating with in a peer mentoring engagement, both of you are always serving as a mentor and a mentee, because your focus really is on an exchange of information. And mentoring takes place, and we like to talk about it with mentoring with grace. When you're doing peer mentoring, there isn't anybody who's showing up who knows everything about all of it. Part of the reason why is because information changes, it enhances. The reality is, when you're a peer mentor, you believe you got something to share, but you also want to learn from somebody, and there's some equity between the two. So, how does this whole peer mentoring thing actually work? Well, it's based on trust. It has to be based on mutual trust. I trust you to share what you know, and you trust me as well. And it's based on 2 people making a decision to engage as peer mentors. And they decide to discuss, areas of mutual interest, things that they can explore, improve upon, experiences that they have or they'd like to have. And then they identify and set mutual goals. Now, I hope some of you have some capacity to take notes on the computer, or you have a notebook by you, because you're going to have what we call in our workshops these aha moments. And so if you have an aha moment, write it down. Aha moment is something that you can utilize right away. An aha moment could be something that you want to share with folks that you work with. Or an aha moment would be like, man, that's a good idea. I need to work on that in the next 60, 90 days going forward. So again, you want to identify and set mutual goals. They also determine what are going to be constructive logistics of the meeting, of the mentoring engagement. So do we meet once a week? Do we meet once a month? How long do we have to talk? Are we meeting over Zoom? Are we having a virtual coffee? Is it broken up that we do a little bit about some personal exchange before we go forward? So you decide what's included in the peer mentoring opportunity and when the exchange will place. And understand this, it is absolutely part of the mentoring experience, the peer mentoring experience, that you might fail a little bit going forward and someone else might fail too, because you are learning together and you're sharing together as well. And feedback is really the key to the peer mentoring experience. So when you're engaged in peer mentoring, you're always prepared to offer feedback to one another on, on your interests, the behaviors that you're demonstrating in attitude or performance in a certain area. Check out this video when we talk about 1 minute mentoring. What does that look like?
I think you build trust by connecting over people's humanity and connecting over those vulnerable moments and letting them know who you really are. If you'll reveal to people what your hopes and dreams are and who you are as a person, they will reveal that to you as well. And then
Oops.
you can have a much more common understanding of whatever problem it is you're trying to tackle, and you can move forward then together. But trust takes time, and sometimes it's built in the small moments, and lots of the small moments that then add up to the big moments. And so you've got to take some time to do it. It's not something that comes instantly, just like a friendship doesn't come instantly. But if you can get it and you can spend time doing it, boy, is it worth it. And there's some of the greatest moments then of your life.
It's built on the small moments. Trust is the bedrock of any peer mentoring engagement. So, one of the things that you want to think about is what are the trust dividends and the trust taxes that you're bringing to a mentoring engagement? Because since peer mentoring is an absolute mutual exchange based on an even playing field, think about how you want to bring your best trust dividends to that conversation. So, what do we see as the secret sauce of peer mentoring? It's two things: it's curiosity and inquisition. That's what takes you to a next level of engaging in a peer mentoring relationships. Curiosity. So, what do you mean by that, Jeff? What do you mean when we say curiosity? Great peer mentoring engagements allow you to be curious about something. So, I want you to stop and I want you to think for a moment during this time where you have been working from home and you've had an opportunity to maybe think about some things that you weren't traditionally thinking about at work. Maybe you developed an area of curiosity. I'll tell you one for me. There's a program called Canva, which gives you the capacity to make marketing materials. I'd love to know more about Canva. And I thought to myself, well, Jeff, you got to practice what you preach, eat your own dog food. You got to be able to not only talk about mentoring, but actually participate in it. And so I needed to go find somebody who knew more about Canva than I did. So part of it is your curiosity about a subject area and understanding the depth as to where you want to go. And then the other is when you're involved in this peer mentoring engagement, you do a little bit of questioning, some inquisition to one another, where I'm bringing up an idea and you're bringing up an idea. In my consulting practice, we have 24 leadership workshops. One of them is called Intergenerational Collaborative Intelligence. And as you are functioning in this sphere of peer mentoring, you're going to start demonstrating some really cool collaborative intelligence actions where you're now going to be able to have some awesome engagements with folks because you're allowing yourself to go to a psychologically safe place to demonstrate some curiosity and inquisition. And you are not approaching those issues alone, but you're approaching them with your peers and with others. So when you commit yourself to an environment of curiosity and inquisition, you make the peer mentoring experience exceptional. So what do we think becoming an exceptional peer mentor really means? Is that you do not say to yourself, I'm going to have one peer. No, instead, you decide you're going to build a council of peer mentors. So you want to ask yourself a series of, traditional 6 questions about this council of mentors. Who should be part of your council? What should they expect from you by being a part of your council? One of the things we talk about often is you got to give before you get, you got to offer before you ask. So how do you how would you want to frame that when you're thinking about who should be on your council? And where do you find these council folks? Where could they be? When should you begin? And how should you select your council members? And why? Why do you even want to have a council of mentors? A lot of times people are not sure exactly, they don't give themselves enough time to think through why do they want to be involved in a peer mentorship. So one of the homework assignments I have for you is to run through these 6 questions. But wouldn't be fair if I asked you to run through the 6 questions and I didn't give you some of those 6 answers. But before we do that, while we think about what's an awesome, an effective mentor or mentee, let me give you a little bit of a checklist. Everyone who shows up in a peer mentoring engagement should be authentic. Their real self should be present. In fact, for some of you, you got to practice a phrase. It goes like this: I don't know. Because if you go into a peer mentoring engagement thinking you know everything, you're not being authentic. You're there to learn from one another, and to teach one another. You also have to be fully present. One of the cool things about COVID-19 is it's kind of outed the distractors, the people who try to talk to you and do 4 emails and take a phone call and have someone in their office at the same time. When you work from home, you can multitask a little bit, but you can't multitask so much that you're not present. So you have to have a commitment to being present, commitment to be ready to listen, and open to share. Look, one of the best mentors that I have ever had was willing to tell me some of the mistakes that he had made. Here he is, a storied leader known all over the world. And for some crazy reason, as we're involved in this mentoring engagement, I thought, guy's never made any mistakes. He made plenty, and he was willing to share them with me. And you got to be honest about what you know and what you want to be able to share. Humility, being humble, is part of that secret sauce, and being focused and committed to making sure that the peer mentoring engagement is beneficial for both sides, not just for you, it's also beneficial for the people that you're involved with. So as I said, I can't just tell you about what you should be thinking about for the council. Let me give you some of the answers. So who should be on your council? It's individuals who are your peers that you work alongside with or who you have an interest with, somebody that you share some sort of mutual ideas, mutual thoughts, mutual interests. They should be part of your peer mentoring council. What you're going to bring, you will participate fully. You have to commit to that and bring all of your curiosity and inquisition there. Where do you find them? Here's what's crazy, is people are always looking for their next network without actually looking as deep as they can into their current network. So I would argue, and we're going to talk a little bit about this on the next couple of slides, but where you're going to find them is in the current network that you have. And yes, some of you are going to step forward, but it is looking at the richness of the network that you have and then connecting through them. When should you begin the building of your council of peer mentors? Let me think about that. Today. There's no reason why you can't start doing it today. You don't have to do a long project plan. You don't have to find the critical path. You don't have to do any kind of micro successes. You don't have to do a pilot project. You can start literally today. In fact, I think you could select 3 to 5, 5 to 7 individuals that you can think about connecting with, because some of the characteristics I showed you earlier are characteristics that they possess. And think about the characteristic of the mentors you want to participate in, and the characteristics, also the curiosity and inquisition that you want to bring to the engagement. Why do you even do this? It's simple. You want to grow. You want to grow yourself professionally. You want to enhance your skills. You want to become not just a better person, but you want to become a better professional. Peer mentoring gives you that opportunity. So I know for some of you, it's Jeff, Jeff, I get it, but I need a little bit more help on how do I actually find a peer mentor, whether it's in my network or somewhere else. I'm so glad you asked. So let's talk about the steps, literally the steps to securing a peer mentor. The first is do a little bit of research. Research on the person that you want to connect with. If you share a mutual interest, is it a current state mutual interest, or is this something that they were interested in the past, or you were interested in the past? Understand a little bit more about them and the interests that they have. Always in your first connection with somebody, figure out how you want to give to them. So we call it, again, you want to give before you get, you want to offer before you ask. Your initial, either an email, phone call, Zoom call, whatever the case is, you just want to talk with that individual about what you want to be able to see in this exchange, in a peer mentoring engagement. And before you reach out, kind of figure out what's the most comfortable tool for you. Now some folks are really good at doing emails and they're not best at the Zoom calls. Know what's best for you and practice your approach. You don't want to practice approaching somebody for the first time to engage in a peer mentoring activity with you without practicing it, either on a friend or practicing it with somebody else that you work with. And be ready. You may get an objection or two. Just be ready to respond. That objection may be classic. I don't have enough time. I really would love to do this, but I just haven't done it before. Be ready for people when they do that, and then follow up on everything that you've committed to really complete and have this process, this engagement, have clarity for it, and have steps that that they know as well. And I want to emphasize that all of us can be a great mentor. And so here's some awesome information from our friend Simon Sinek.
At this moment in your life, where are you seeking advice and coaching?
I have a few mentors, people who I love, and I have a very specific sort of definition of a mentor. So I have a mentor, a remarkable human being, right, who's been there for me. He's been good to me, and look, he's much older than me. He's accomplished much more than me. He's an amazing guy, right? And I said to him, I love that you're my mentor, and he replied, and I love that you're mine. And I realized that this whole mentor-mentee relationship is unbalanced, right? It creates this sort of strange power dynamic that I know everything and you're the mentee. And so my new standard is, occasionally I'll get a phone call from somebody that says, hey, Simon, will you be my mentor? And my answer is, only if you'll be mine. And in other words, I will only be someone's mentor if I want them to be mine. In other words, if there's something about them that I want to learn, I want to be around, I could learn, I could be around, then I will gladly share what I have as well. But I think mentor relationships aren't mentor-mentee, they should be mentor-mentor. And one should only agree to be someone's mentor if you want them to be your mentor too. And so the people I get advice from, I'm proud to say that I get to share with them also. And it's a mutual relationship. Of all the people that I would call my mentors, of all the people that I would say I learn a lot from, I know they would all say the same of me. And I'm proud of that.
So as you can see, as we're talking about it, all of us can become a great mentor. So as we get to the end of this, I'm going to ask that all of us think about challenging ourselves. First, I want you to commit to stepping outside of your comfort zone and step into a courage zone. You can secure a cadre, a council of peer mentors. And so step one is say, I can do that. Step out of the comfort zone into the courage zone. Two, take a look at your LinkedIn. Start there and pick 5 to 7 individuals based on what you see as mutual interest of people that you'd like to contact. And then challenge 3, just reach out and contact those people that you've identified and let them go from being a connection to a conduit of wisdom. And that's what you should really think of as your mentors. They're conduits of wisdom. Our final thought is, look, fear is the greatest blocker of opportunity. Don't let it derail you. Start today to begin to build your council of mentors and transform your connections really into conduits of wisdom. So on that note, I say a thank you to Evan and everyone else, and open it up to some questions and answers.
Outstanding, Jeff. Thank you. There's so much content here. So I just want to let everyone know that at the end of this, we will provide slides later today so you can look back through everything Jeff has said. We have just a little bit of time for questions. Here's one that came through that I think is probably very timely. The person said, I love the idea of grace, which you talked about earlier in approaching the mentorship relationship, but how do I grow comfortable with the fact that I have absolutely no answers at all and only questions, failure, and fear?
Yeah. So I would argue that that the person who, first off, thank you for the question, and the person who raised the question, I think everybody else on this webinar would say that you are standing tall in a place of authenticity. And in a peer mentoring relationship, if you look at the 7 or 8 things that we listed, being authentic is the first thing. And I would also argue that you may think that you only have those things, and you might say, I don't know. But my guess is that you're a student. If you weren't, you wouldn't have participated in this webinar. So if you and I were involved in a peer mentoring engagement, I would try and figure out an area of mutual interest that you and I both have some curiosity about. And then I would say, hey, would it be okay if you learn about, part 1, 2, and 3, and I learn part 4 and 5, and then in a couple of weeks we just share kind of what we learned. What do we think the skinny is on this, and then how does it apply? Well, guess what just happened? You became a teacher and a student at the same time because of your authenticity. You don't have to step in the room thinking you're the one who knows the most, but be the one who's willing to learn the most and engage people where they are. Here's what you're going to find. They'll engage you where you are as well.
That authenticity seems really important. Just being comfortable with the person that you are, and knowing that being authentic is really so much of the battle. Here's a question that's a real interesting wrinkle to that is, do you think it's appropriate to reach out to a younger peer at work for a mentoring relationship?
Totally 150% yes. And the way you can do it is say, hey, listen, particularly we have a lot, I do intergenerational stuff, intergenerational collaborative intelligence, that's my area of specialty. There's a lot of executives who are not as familiar with technology as you would anticipate. And here's the thing, if you find someone who is younger, you approach them by saying, I appreciate the way you approach work. There's some things that I think we can learn from one another, and then throw out 3 to 5 areas of potential mutual interest, and gauge with them what you think their capacity to be involved in that would be, and you'll be surprised as to how willing younger people are to be a peer mentor once you give them the psychological safe place to engage you at that level.
Excellent, thank you. And here's what may be our last question, but one that I think probably a lot of people are thinking about. This person asked, what are the follow-ups to respond with for an objection? And in this case, they've never done this before. So how should she handle a possible objection to being a mentor?
Yeah, and that's where we go back to the whole conversation about grace. When people say, hey, I've never done this before, I'm not sure exactly how to do it, you remind them that the process isn't formal. You can give them 3 or 4 bullets around 2 or 3 different items that talks about how it could go forward. It's flexible, so their contribution is not only going to be considered, but obviously for it to be executed, they'll look at it, and you're willing to make adjustments as you go away. You kind of fail fast to see what works and doesn't work. And so you can expect sometimes that people are going to say two objections. They don't have time and they haven't done it. And if they don't have time, you tell them you can limit the time to less than 20 minutes once every 3 weeks, and it's at the other person's convenience. And if they've never done it before, there's a quick cheat sheet that you can present to them that talks about how the engagement might go, what the logistics might be. You can send them the cheat sheet ahead of time. They can respond, give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Either way, you'll have clarity as to where they stand, and you'll be able to provide them the kind of information that they need to make a decision.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. So we are right at the time. We may actually end on time, maybe just a minute late today. I want to let everyone know Jeff's put together some really amazing resources. And so those are going to be in the slide deck that we share afterwards. Now, before you close the window, though, I do have a few quick announcements to say. First of all, though, I just want to say, Jeff, thank you again. Thank you so much for taking the time to prepare this and share all of this with our viewers.
Awesome. Thank you, Evan, and thank you for Prospanica. Love the group and love your team.
Wonderful, thank you. So a few quick announcements. First of all, next week, this is going to be the webinar where we dive into the recruiting landscape, which is so very volatile right now. You want to learn about how to prepare for whatever is coming next. The week after that, April 28th, that's the virtual career fair. You definitely want to learn more about that, bit.ly/pro career fair. Now, I also want to prepare you for April 29th. That's the Cafecito happening the same week as the career fair. It's going to be different. It's going to be completely different from anything we've done so far. So you want to go ahead and block those 30 minutes on your calendar. Don't let anyone mess with them because you want to be there live for this experience. Trust me, it's going to be cool. It's on human connections in the time of social distancing. So you want to check that out. Remember, you can watch this webinar, any of the past webinars on our website, prospanica.org/webinars. Do not forget, there's a survey coming up as soon as you close out of this. It also will be emailed to you. Please fill it out. It helps us get better. Your critiques, your comments are so very helpful. Again, Jeff, thank you. Thank you to everybody who joined in. Have a great week, everybody. Stay home, stay safe, and stay in touch, and we'll see you next week.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.